will be underway in the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa. And this is also the place where the voting will be taking place as to who between Kenya's Raila Odinga, Madagascar's Richard Randriamandrato and Djibouti's Mahmoud Ali will be the next chairperson of the African Union Commission, and also their deputy, whoever that will be, of course, considering the gender representation that was introduced following the 2018 resolution by the African Union. And that, of course, regards the representation aspect of it and the rotational policy, which was as well introduced at the time in 2018. You're watching this special broadcast that, of course, focuses on what will be happening later in the day from the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, where it is the moment of truth and Raila Odinga's big day in Addis. Previously, we had seen his arrival at the headquarters in the company of the president after they had breakfast. And this is still pictures live from the Ethiopian capital, Addis, by our team, exclusively giving you the live coverage of the arrivals of the heads of states and governments with regards to, of course, what will be happening in the course of the day. Back in studio, my team of analysts are still with me here to give us an account of what will be happening and what will be looking into some of the factors for consideration and the last-minute diplomatic maneuvers done by the Kenyan team in the capital, in the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa. On my immediate right is Professor Maxwell Miawa, constitutional law scholar and an advocate of the High Court. Much appreciated and good morning.
Thanks.
Your presence is highly appreciated. Ahmed Hashi is also a governance commentator, also diplomatic commentator, joins us this morning here on the broadcast. Good morning.
Ayub, it's glad to be here again.
Glad to have you as well. We are also joined by Gordon Kachola, who is foreign policy commentator. Gentlemen, your time is all appreciated. And we had an hour-plus coverage of what will be activity field day from the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa. First, beginning with you, Gordon, what's your take of all that is happening? Has enough been done? And what does that picture of the president in the company of the former prime minister arriving at the AU headquarters project of the man who he has thrown his weight behind to support his cause for the continental job?
Thank you, Ayub. When I look at those pictures, one thing is clear. I see a committed man, intentional, and somebody who is all out to get this back home to Kenya. It's encouraging to see what President Ruto is doing so far, and like what happened in the last contest that Kenya represented someone, or Kenya took in someone to compete for that position. This time round, we've seen a lot of energy, a lot of commitment to bring that seat back home. Yeah.
Ahmed, what do you make of the discussions we had here today, the D-Day, and you can see how Addis is expecting the outcome as to who then takes over from Musa Faki Mahamat?
Probably this is the most important political situation in Africa today, because the idea of bringing this continent together is gaining steam across the continent, because we're now clearly about to understand that nation states in this continent need to have their crises solved, and it cannot be solved internally. The old idea of non-interference in the internal affairs of another country in Africa is dead, because you could see what's going on today in the DRC, where the troops from this rebel movement are about to capture Bukavu. And I put it to you, Ayub, that that is going to cause immediate reaction in the African Union today, because the entire issue of the Great Lakes is in emergency, and I'm sure it's going to have a profound impact on the elections that are coming today. As a Kenyan, of course, we all wish our candidates the best. I mean, it would be very unfair for me as a citizen of this country and as a senior citizen not to wish the former Prime Minister the best of luck. But as you know, in my view, is I think that this region, a lot of places in this Africa are very anti-Kenyan, They feel that Kenya is a very strong state, and giving them power in the AU is going to push the agenda of Kenya even more so. So my views remain the same from last time.
Which is?
Which is, I believe the Prime Minister is going to lose this election.
But you nonetheless wish him the best.
But I nonetheless wish him the best. But I believe that the obstacles are so huge that it's, you know, someone said that I think you're the bravest man I've met. And I said, why? He said, because you just speak your mind. I said, no, it's not about speaking my mind. This is about telling the people of Kenya this alternative universe is there. There's another alternative universe. They can get an informed idea. We're a maturing democracy. We should be able to make some room for different views about what's going on.
Okay. Prof, what's your take?
Of course, I take a very strong divergence,
divergent
views from my colleague,
of course.
who, of course, today I realize we went to the same university.
By the way, he's my junior from the same university. So I think you should accord me a little bit of respect.
Thank you so much. I think the divergence comes in this way. For the first time, we see the exportation of the Kenyan brand of politics into the continent. Good point. I think one thing for certain that this speaks to, but I think it's largely because of the nature, the character, the charisma of who Raila Odinga is, together with the charisma of William Ruto. We are seeing for the first time the politicization of the African continental diplomacy. This is something that is highly unprecedented. I mean, we saw elections before. We have had at least 4 AU chairs. But we did not see as much fireworks.
That's true.
As much vibrance, as much vigor and rigor into the election campaign. This tells you that Kenya has got something new, something great to offer. The Africanization, the Africanization of the politics of diplomacy that has been brought by 2 prominent Kenyan individuals, Raila Odinga on the one hand and William Ruto on the other hand, is perhaps going to give us something new. Whether Raila Odinga wins this or he doesn't win it, the African brand of diplomacy from today, particularly at the top level of AUC leadership, has changed and will be changed for quite a great long time, thanks to William Ruto and Raila Odinga.
And Gordon, when you look at the individuals who have been leading Odinga's campaigns, either directly or indirectly, Obasanjo, President William Ruto, and the Secretariat, you have seen even the last-minute campaign following up on President Evariste Ndayishimiye up to the north, out of the capital, Bujumbura, in Burundi, just to make sure everything is intact and in the right place. What does this tell us, or what does it project of these campaigns by weights that you can never rule them out when it comes to politics and diplomacy?
Well, there are 2 things in this campaign. One is the political aspect of it, which Professor Miao has talked about. Then there is the diplomatic aspect of it. And one thing that is clear, President Ruto had this in mind while he was crafting the Secretariat. He crafted a Secretariat that is highly diplomatic, that is scathingly neat as far as diplomacy of Africa is concerned. Look at, for example, the Secretary General of IGAD leading the team. It clearly shows you the weight with which President Ruto took this as far as diplomacy is concerned. All the diplomatic rigors is taken care of. Then there is the political aspect of it. The political aspect of it, the president has sorted out, because he did not leave this to the Secretariat alone. He ensured that he went out of his way, even up to last minute, like yesterday in the evening. He was still meeting heads of states and governments across Africa to pursue this agenda to the last course. Why is he doing this? He's learned from Kenya's mistakes in 2017. Ambassador Kamau, the former PS for Foreign Affairs, did confirm this, that we did our best, but last-minute slumber cost us the job. This time round, the president is not taking this to chances. He's ensuring that even if the result doesn't come out as we expect, but Kenya shall have done its best in this. I agree with Professor Miawa that the diplomacy in its practice will change drastically beginning today. And I think the pace that has been set by Kenya will have to only continue depending on the personality of any other candidate that shall come.
Okay.
Yes.
And Ahmed, have we learned the pitfalls from the 2017 loss of Ambassador Amina Mohamed leading to the birth of Musa Faki Mahamat?
I don't think we have, because I was there at the Foreign Office at that time, and without saying very much, I was of the view that there was going to be betrayal by Djibouti, for an example. The same Djibouti we're competing against. I was listened to, but the point was thought to be inconsequential. But it turned out to be very consequential, because even Uganda left us. You know the problem of the voting system, I'll try and explain the viewers to understand. You see, the candidates needs 2/3 majority.
Which in this case is 33.
Which is 33 states. So the problem is you keep going from one round to the other. Because right now the race, in my view, is tight. I think Odinga is just down by maybe 11 to 10 states, in my view. And I can explain that later if you wish. But right now, this process of going from one round to the other, it creates deal-making for positions inside the system. So if they smell blood, if a regional states or regional grouping smell blood and they think that someone is not going to make it, immediately, even though they made a gentleman's handshake with you, they can switch immediately because of their state interests, which is a factor in the election of the AU chairman. I think where we went wrong is from the very beginning, from the philosophical point of view. The Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Korir, an astute, competent Permanent Secretary, no question about that, just disagree with him about the issue, is that his philosophy was that there are certain inalienable state interests that guide the election to the AU. Now, you see, that, if that were true, then there would not be an Islamic Council, which is made up of 30 states. And about 28 of them have already committed to the candidate from Djibouti. If there was no other cultural issues, for an example, the problem of South Africa and Donald Trump, which I've explained before, the Americans are not happy with some states that may support Odinga, particularly because South Africa and Donald Trump have a diplomatic tiff, as you know, in the last week. Today, as we speak, the troops of Rwanda supported, let me say, Rwanda has denied that it supports the M23 troops. They are going to Bukavu. The first battalions have entered Bukavu last night. That's a huge game changer. The question is, will they stop or will they go to Kinshasa? And you know, Bukavu, it's right next to Burundi. There is a chance that there's going to be conflict in the next 48 hours if those people don't stop and go back to where they started, because Burundi will try and defend its borders. So I think that the DRC, the Gulf of Guinea states, and all those states that are there will be talking about sanctioning Rwanda there in the AU, and Kagame is gone there. This will have an impact on the vote, because Kenya will be asked, what is your... And Kenya is a major player in the DRC's conflict resolution process, as you know, yes, and as my learned colleagues on the left and right know. So I think that that's an unfortunate thing that has happened there in the DRC, and I think that the effects on the election is going to be felt before we are done with this interview.
All right, Prof, I'll come to you, but first let me engage Enoch Musue, who is joining us from the county of Machakos as part of the series of lives across the county to monitor the situation across the continent, Masai, that is, then it's in the county of Kajiado, to give us a feel and the expectations of the public. What can you tell us, Masai, and having talked with the people and the expectations for the day ahead of the elections?
shughuli hizi zilipoanza kama siku 3 zilizopita, wakati ya Wakenya waliweza kumiminika katika jiji la Addis Ababa kuweza kufuatilia shughuli hii nzima ambayo itakuwa inatamatika hii leo. Na ninao hapa wananchi ambao tayari wako hapa kuweza kutoa maoni yao kuhusiana na labda matarajio yao kwa siku hii na masuala kama yale. Nitaanza hapa hivi, naona maoni ni mengi kweli kweli, lakini nitaanza na huyu kaka hapa hivi. Tueleze tu labda leo ni siku kubwa sana ikizingatiwa kwamba Mkenya mmoja ambaye ni Raila Odinga anagombea kiti cha EAC.
Okay, mimi ni majina ni Ole Taiko kutoka Kajiado, na tuko sisi ni wakaji wa Kajiado, na sisi obvious tunapenda baba yetu Raila. Ile kitu tunamtakia laheri, na tungependa akienda huko asisahau wa Kenya, kwa sababu kwa ukweli kama ingekuwa yeye tungeumia sana wa Kenya. Kwa hivyo hata kama ataenda huko arudi tu akumbuke watoto wa Kenya ya kwamba ametuachia nani. So tumeona kwa kweli akona president wetu ambayo ni Samuel Ruto, lakini tunaona tu akiwa pamoja tutaona kama maendeleo itakuwa. Kwa hivyo sisi tuko na tumaini pia na president wetu ambaye amemtetea kwa hali na mali. So tunaomba tu atutetee na atetee wa Kenya wote masisi maskini kama venye anatetea wao wadozi hao kina Raila. Kwa hivyo tunaomba tu, hiyo ndio maoni yangu, na tushikane pamoja wa Kenya, tuache vita.
Haya, asante sana. Unaweza songea tu hapa alafu tueleze labda maoni yako ni yapi? Angalia kamera.
Kwa majina ni Saidi Osore. Jambo la kwanza mimi nashukuru sana Raila Odinga kwa hiyo wadhifa. Raila ashapita ndugu zanguni. Raila ashapita, ni kutangaza tu, anangoja masaa ifike na mtangaze. Kwa sababu Wakenya tumeomba, kama mimi mwenyewe binafsi sijalala usiku mzima. Nimekesha nikiombea Raila Amolo Odinga. Na kweli Mungu najua Mungu aliye hai hata kosa kujibu maombi. Raila ashapita, Wakenya jitayarisheni kushangilia ushindi wa Raila Amolo, na Mungu anajua ako na sababu. Asante sana, na Raila tunakutakia kila laheri na Mungu akubariki.
Asante sana. Wacha tuanze na huyu alafu tutakuja kwako. Karibia tu hapa alafu angalia kamera.
Asante, naitwa Samson Kamau. Mimi ni kiongozi ya boda boda hii town. Nataka niongelee maneno ya EU. Mimi kwa maoni yangu naona ya kwamba Raila amesimama mara mingi hapa Kenya na hajaiweza kupata. So mimi kwa maoni yangu ningeonelea ningependelea akae hapa na sisi, kwa sababu hapa tunamhitaji kuliko vile anahitajika huko. Vile ningependa kusema ni ya kwamba Raila arudi tu hapa Kenya, wasikane na Wamunyoro, watoe Kasongo, kwa sababu sisi tuko na shida. Tuendelee kuhangaika pamoja sisi wote hapa.
Asante sana. Nafikiri kwa sababu ya muda mwelekezi wangu ananiambia kwamba tutarejea tena baadaye, lakini kwa sasa naomba tukomee hapo tuweze kurudi studio, alafu tutarejea baadaye. Wananchi wana maoni chungu mzima, lakini kwa sasa narejesha kwako Ayub.
Thank you, Robert Masai from the county of Kajiado. They are sampling the expectations of the public. A mixed bag, I should say, given what Laura Otieno, John Wanyama, Francis Mtalaki, Kamau Mwangi, and Crispin Otieno had given us earlier when we had kick-started this broadcast. And here is the arrivals of the heads of state at the VVIP unit of the African Union, where Seth Olale was and keeping an eye on the arrivals of the heads of state and governments for the important day of the African Union ahead of the 38th Ordinary Summit of the Assembly of the Heads of State in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Live pictures from the Addis Ababa VVIP presidential entrance area. Heads of states from the 49 member states of the African Union are arriving there. You can see the Mauritius president there, his official presidential motorcade making its way here at the Nelson Mandela plenary. This is a highly guarded and protected area. It is only meant for the heads of states and governments, their ministers, their aides, all of them being instructed to use a different entrance area. And this is the exact location where we saw earlier on Kenya's president, Dr. Samoei William Ruto, and Kenyan candidate Raila Amolo Odinga enter the Africa Union headquarters from. And, you know, it is now all system go, because the arrival of, you know, the 35 presidents 8 prime ministers and 6 high representatives from the various nations that have been appointed from. This one now signals the formal start of today's proceedings at the Nelson Mandela plenary, effective 10:30 a.m. And like I mentioned earlier before, the President of the Republic of Kenya, that is Dr. Samoei Ruto, drove drove in the same vehicle with Kenya's candidate Raila Amolo Odinga, even as they made their way at the VVIP entrance. And thereafter, both of them were ushered, into a holding area. That has been the practice, but it was. I wouldn't say opposite, but it was a very different reception from what we've seen from, the likes of Djibouti candidate in the AUC chairperson, that is Mohamed Yusuf Ali, who, arrived at the other VIP section designated for ministers and high representatives of heads of government. So quite low-key, but also very, very much significant. This is just part and parcel of protocol. Nothing to read much from there. How the candidates for various positions here arrive here at the Africa Union headquarters really doesn't matter. It is just a diplomatic procedure for how you choose to arrive. And President William Ruto and the Kenyan candidate Raila Odinga just chose to drive in the same car and to arrive together. Unlike the Djibouti candidate who we saw entering through an alternative entrance that designated for ministers. And it serves right because the Djibouti candidate for the Africa Union Commission chairperson is also the Foreign Affairs Minister for Djibouti, and he was here actually way early for the 2-day Interministerial Executive Council of the Africa Union, which came up with various recommendations, and it is on the basis of their report that the heads of state here during this 38th Ordinary Summit are going to deliberate to either adopt or drop some of the recommendations made by the Interministerial Council, of the Africa Union. So a very, very, very busy morning here at the Africa Union headquarters in Addis Ababa. Like I said, security has been beefed up. We've seen roads, some roads, some access roads to this particular building, have been closed. We've seen roads barricaded. We've seen traffic diverted. It's a very, very momentous, moment for Ethiopia itself, and especially when the Africa Union hosts the Heads of State Summit. Our business almost comes to a standstill, and especially in Addis Ababa's central business district. You can imagine assembling a total of 35 presidents and, 8 prime ministers and 6 other representatives. And apart from those particular heads of states, you also have very high-profile representations from the international organizations, the United Nations, for example, which is part and parcel of today's summit, the European Union, the likes of humanitarian agencies, global agencies such as the Red Cross and the Red Crescent, all of them part and parcel of today's, very, very key agenda here in this particular capital, Addis of Ethiopia. And so right now, any moment from now, viewers, we expect the official anthem for the AU to be presided over by the military by the Ethiopian forces, and thereafter we will have brief comments from speakers just to bring the meeting to order. But thereafter there will now be the unveiling of the reports, and one of the reports will be the minutes and held during the 37th summit last year here in Addis Ababa, and then thereafter there will also be adoption of reports from the Interministerial Executive Council of the AU that was attended by various up to close to 49 foreign affairs ministers. We saw the Prime Cabinet Secretary and also the Foreign Affairs Minister for Kenya being part and parcel of those particular talks that, among others, discuss issues to do with how the election will be held, the election of the Africa Union Commission Chair and the Deputy. We also saw the 6 commissioners of this particular secretariat of the AU also elected. We saw other representatives of the AU organs being elected, from by the various ministers. So it is upon that report that the heads of state here are going to adopt some of the discussions there. But also remember that the Interministerial Executive Council of the AU did discuss issues to do with peace and stability